Hi, I'm Michael, and welcome to The Journey. Today we're talking about the beginning cues and markers. What are cues and markers? They're all training tools for your dog, but how do you use them and which one do you use first? Stay tuned, and we're going to find out. Today I'm with Kim Greco and Travis Borson. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Step by Step Beginning Training Cues and Markers. They're training tools. What are they? And where do you use them? Today we're going to be breaking it down. We started last week, but we didn't get too far through it, so I thought we'd go ahead and revisit this and just pick it up where we left it up last week. Today I've got Kim Greco. She's a trainer here in Maryland in the United States. She has an online program that you can take online or in person at her location. With that, I would love for Kim to say hello to the room. Hello, Kim.
Hey there, Michael. I am so honored to be here, and I was just texting Travis. I think he's on his way also, and so it'll be fun for the two of us to be here together. It's always great to be here, and I love the conversation. We'd love to help people start their dogs off on the right paw in getting their training started. And you already mentioned I have an online dog training program. It mimics the same curriculum that we teach in our group training classes, our in-person classes that we have in Maryland. And it's always a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Kim. Hey, Travis, how are you today? Good to see you. Travis is another trainer we have here in the United States in Oklahoma. He's been on the Big Fat Pet Makeover on Animal Planet and has got other things up his sleeve. What's going on, Travis?
Hey, Michael. Hi, Kim. All good here. Yeah, it's all good. Finally got some nice weather here, and we're gearing up to start filming the Discovery Plus show called The Dog Games, and they are currently casting dog trainers as contestants for the show. So if anybody listening today wants to do something like that, let me know. I can send them to the castings way. Maybe Michael, maybe it's perfect for you to get in on that. I could put in a good word.
I was thinking Kim, she's such a great sidekick for you. I think Kim would be perfect for it. Kim, what's your thought?
I think Kim, if anything, should be an expert judge. If anything, I think she's a level above, but that's just me. I guess I'm just a big fan of hers.
I love it. Well, that's exciting.
You wonder why I keep coming back. All the love it.
Hey, where else are you going to get it?
Oh, that's a good question.
I know, right? Do we get it at home? Do we get it from our dogs? Where do we get our love? With that, okay, guys, last week we were talking about the cues and markers. And I've got like a 10-page document here of notes that I had. And for some reason, I just see that we got through the first page, and I don't know why we only got through the first page. But I thought we'd just pick it up and just kind of like revisit what we were talking about last week and then pick it up from there. Kim, can you describe what a cue is?
Sure thing. It's a signal that you can give to your dog to let them know what it is that you'd like them to do. So a cue could be you could cue your dog to sit or lay down, come when called, any of the traditional obedience commands that people are quite familiar with for dog training.
And Travis, how about markers?
Sure. So marker can be described a couple different ways, but marker is something that we use to let the dog know that whenever they do something right, we can use a marker, which could be a clicker as a marker, which we know Kim does a lot of things with clickers. People always ask me why I don't use clickers. It's a pretty simple answer. It's because if I relied on a clicker, I would lose it. So I don't rely on clickers as markers, but I think they're fantastic tools, and I know that they work really well for some people. But you could use a lot of things for markers. You could even use, like a lot of trainers use the word yes. So they're getting a dog to sit. As soon as the bottom hits the ground, they say yes, and then they can, have a few extra seconds to get them that reward. But marker is just a good way to mark the behavior that you want right on time. Lets the dog know that what they're doing is what you wanted.
And so cues and markers. Kim, what comes first?
The cue would come first. You'd ask your dog to do something, and then when your dog did it, you would use a marker I think a good way to learn about markers is to imagine that the moment you use your marker, it's as if you're taking a photograph of whatever the dog is doing in the moment that you clicked or the moment you said the word yes. And then that is followed up by reinforcement for your dog to let them know that what you asked them to do is what you wanted, and then they're going to get reinforced with something that they like.
So with that, Travis, I love going back and forth like this. This is fun. Cues and markers. What's your dog's best friend, the cue or the marker?
Well, my dog's best friend is the reward. So you could reward with the mark, you could reward with the cue. But my dog, obviously, their favorite part is all the good stuff. So whenever you're delivering the reward for whatever it is you're asking, that's their favorite part, and that's what motivates them to do what it is that we're, getting them to do, teaching them to do.
So then, okay, Kim, let's break it down a little bit more now for everybody in the room. If they hear about cues and they hear about markers, when they're getting their dogs to when they start training their dogs, what are they using? What's your method of working with your clients of training them? Because I think you have to train your clients as well all the time, along with the dogs. What I understand is like a lot of times the pet parent doesn't know where to begin. So you have to really start there to really be able to start a successful training practice, I would think. And I know you always talk about this, Kim, about how you talk to the parent and you say, okay, what training do you want to have out of this? What do you want to be able to do with your dog? And I think that's such a brilliant way to start your relationship with your clients. Anyone in the room here, still cues and markers are like, well, okay, I've heard sit before and I've heard people use clickers before. So maybe if they're confused, how would you unconfuse them?
Well, I think that I tend to say regularly, don't overcomplicate this. This is not rocket science. So if anybody's confused, then they're overthinking it. So it's really just a matter of start wherever you want to start. Do something easy with your dog. Ask them to do something simple, and they get it right, then they can get rewarded with something that they like. And so that could be sit. A lot of times I'll start with something just as simple as like, don't try to steal a treat from me. That kind of makes training easier if they'll be a little more polite around the food. And so sometimes I'll start with somebody just holding food inside their hand, and then we'll click when the dog doesn't try to steal it from them. And within a matter of 3 minutes or less, a dog could learn to really be patient. And then, you can go on to the next thing. And so I think my biggest advice would be that if somebody felt confused, then they're trying to probably make this too hard.
So what would be the basic steps, Travis? Where would one start?
Yeah. So to kind of add on to what she's saying, with new puppy clients or dog owners, we don't really get into a lot of the verbiage as far as cues and clickers and commands and whatever it is. We try to break it down even more simple. And we just say, what is it that you want your dog to do? What is it that you don't want them to do? And then how can we start to create habits? How can we start to create routines where your dog consistently gives you the behavior that you want, and then you reward it? So, for instance, if your dog is constantly jumping, well, the opposite of jumping would be sitting, right, or standing, so 4 paws on the floor. So we play a lot of fun games where everybody in the family, and kids included, get some kibble, and we all kind of spread out around the room, and the dog kind of bounces back and forth, and the dog runs up and stays on all fours. They can pay them with the food and reward them. Yay, good boy, good girl. And then literally the dog is like a pinball bouncing around the room, really just teaching the owners when your dog comes up to you, that jumps on you, you're going to ignore it. But when all 4 paws hit the ground, you have to pay them. And just teaching them that, hey, let's get your dog into a consistent habit, and the people in the family, just like you said, that you all understand what to do when you have a quote unquote crisis with your dog. Crisis being like your dog just continues to make bad decisions. It's really important for me that the owners understand what's going on in the dog's mind and why the dog is making these bad choices. It's not because they're mad at you. They don't pee on your shoe because you left them at home too long. They're peeing on your shoe because they're inside and they had to go to the bathroom and the shoe was handy or it smelled funny. So I think for us, like Kim said, just really breaking it down, making it very, very simple and helping them understand what's going on in the dog's mind. And so a lot of that, to answer your question, is really about luring the dog into the positions that you want, rewarding them, being consistent, and practicing it regularly so that your dog repeats that behavior.
So looking at the title here, we have beginning training cues and markers. I'm going to put it into 3 categories. I've got puppy, I've got an older dog, and then I've got a rescue dog. Okay. So there are 3 different dogs we're going to be dealing with, and we're going to start with the puppy. Kim, beginning training. What would be, if I'm a pet owner, I have a brand new puppy, I've got him all vaccinated, I'm ready to hit the track training, and I come to you, what's our first cues that we're going to learn are the most important cues to learn in puppies?
I'm going to throw a wrench into your question with my answer because I think the most important, most important thing for me with a puppy would be opposite of a cue, which would be, can this puppy learn to be really comfortable and confident doing nothing? That for some dogs in all 3 categories, doing nothing can sometimes be the hardest thing that you can ask your dog to do. So I do purposely teach that and reinforce dogs for being good at doing nothing. But to answer your question, the way you asked it, as far as the cues, I always like to start with all of the basic simple ones, but I like to vary the session. So I would teach a dog a variety of different cues, sort of simultaneously throughout the week, but not necessarily all within the same session. But a young dog could learn sit, they can learn down. I always start to work on training them to come when I call them very early. But I always start that training so simple. The goal in training all of these cues is that your dog just gets it right. And if something's going on in your training session where your dog is getting it wrong, then some part of the session is too hard. So you could do a bunch of different things where they just keep getting it right. And then like Travis was mentioning, you're creating habits where they're getting in the habit of listening to the words that you're saying or the hand signals that you're using or just following the food as a lure at the first step. They're getting in the habit of doing all these things and then getting reinforced for complying, for doing what we want them to do. But we present it as like a fun, interesting game that, why wouldn't they want to do that? And so if it's fun and interesting and they're getting rewarded for it, the puppies for sure are going to sign up and want to play. And the goal is that you are shaping different behaviors that you want them to learn slowly but consistently throughout the first few weeks of training.
Well, when you say your very first thing is do nothing, and for a puppy, I can imagine that's not the easiest thing. I know when I was a kid, I was bouncing all over the place, and I see puppies bouncing all over the place. So is that an instruction that you work with your clients before they come to class, or is that like your first day of class?
It's our first day of class, and our first lesson that we teach them in class. But we also, because we use clickers and because we are explaining to the clients exactly what we want them to do and what they're looking for in their puppy as it starts to calm down, we can reinforce them for that. And then it just doesn't take very long. If the puppy's getting reinforced for doing nothing, they're pretty quick to doing nothing. Most puppies can lay down at their owner's feet and do nothing in a fairly short amount of time if the person is reinforcing them for that and not accidentally reinforcing them for the opposite of that in all the stuff that they're doing that's a little bit wild. So it's very strategic, and it's crafted in a way that, if we can get them to calm down, it's also then much, much easier to get the puppies to be able to focus on what it is that we are going to be actively teaching them to do, as opposed to just they're kind of zinging all over the place and bouncing off the walls and you're trying to get them to lay down, for instance.
Okay, I have some follow-ups there, but I want to jump to Travis. Okay, Travis, same question for you.
Yeah. So One thing that I would add to what Kim's saying, and this is what she's saying, we refer to it as promoting calm behavior, which is doing nothing, right? If the dog's calm, it's doing nothing. But in the dog's mind, it is doing something. Um, we always explain to the clients that when you reward a dog, you're rewarding two main things, and you could be rewarding other things too. So this is just the way we do it. But you're rewarding where they are in the environment. So if they run to the kitchen table and they get something of value, they were just rewarded for being at the kitchen table, right? And then the other thing that we talk about them rewarding is the state of mind. So if you walk through the door of your house and your dog's going nuts, and you come in and greet him and, hey, how you doing? What's up, Buster? Oh, so great. Your dog is defaulting. Okay, somebody comes through that door, default to crazy land, because if I go crazy, they love all over me, right? So we really talk about the timing and what you're actually rewarding and what rewards are, right? Rewards are praise, food, treats, love, attention, affection, can be eye contact. And helping the owner understand that if you're rewarding your dog when they're really, really excited, and that's the only time you engage with them, that's going to be their default. So promoting calm behavior, or in Kim's words, encouraging them to do nothing and rewarding that is very, very helpful and productive, right? So that, for me, a lot of times comes before cues, comes before markers, even can come before basic obedience, really helping the family understand that when your dog receives something of value, something is being rewarded.
So as Kim says it, get them comfortable. You say promoting calm behavior. It's the same thing. Some puppies, I would think, just are really hard to grasp this, or do you just find because Kim, like you said, strategic, it's been crafted. You've formed your training practice over years, and you've fine-tuned it. Have you found that it always needs to be fine-tuned, or have you pretty much feel like you've got your method and your path that you walk down with all dogs, even though it may vary per personality of the dog, but you pretty much have A, B, C, D, these steps?
Well, Kim, do you want? I'll add this and then let Kim jump on there. I think it's different depending on the environment. It's different depending on the family, as far as like the exact starting point. So for me, it's not always a cookie cutter situation, but it could be, right? So if there's a new trainer that's just starting out and they can't walk into a new home, assess the situation, and understand where to start, there are a lot of trainers that will go in and just kind of have a little roadmap, and they'll just go down it. And that doesn't mean that that's wrong. I just think there's so many variables, right? The age of the children. Are there children? Is it a single, person home? Are there multiple adults living there? And I think a lot of that could steer you in one way or the other about where to start. But typically, we always start with rules, boundaries, structure, and then just helping them understand the basics and what's going on in their dog's mind. So one thing you mentioned a while ago was puppies. Like sometimes it's really hard for them to do nothing. So explaining to the owner, if your dog needs to get its wiggles out, well, let it get its wiggles out, right? If it's running those crazy circles that they like to run, the worst thing you could do is be trying to get your dog to sit, right? It's like sending your kids to a pool party and after being there for 5 minutes, telling them they need to get out and do their homework, right? The kids are going to have to be kids. Dogs will have to be dogs. And just helping the owners understand, and Kim and I, we both talk about this all the time, just be aware not to ask your dog to do something in an environment you don't think they're going to be successful. There's times to just let them be a dog, right? And I think that that's important for owners to understand.
I like that. Let them be a dog. That's probably really hard sometimes for pet parents these days because they're such a part of their family and they're like children to them. So they're probably like, a dog? No, they're my kid. Kim, backing up to you about what we were talking about, strategic, you've crafted your method. How do you flow with the ebb and flow of training?
I think I agree with the way that Travis was just explaining it, in that it's not a cookie cutter curriculum per se that every dog goes through. But I do believe that for each dog, we do have a particular set of exercises that we're going to want them to learn. And then depending on the dog and the family and the other variables may then depend on what order we teach them, and also what percentage of time we're going to ask the clients to focus on that particular exercise as part of their homework. Some dogs might need, exercise A once or twice during the week, but other dogs might need exercise A like twice a day at a minimum. And then that same dog would have a different exercise that they might need less, and vice versa. So, but there wouldn't be a dog I train, at least not one that I can think of off the cuff. There wouldn't be a dog that I train where I would say like, oh, they don't need to learn the, exercise A. We can skip that one altogether. So it may not be super important, but it's for that dog to transform its whole life, but it's still important that they learn that particular exercise. I probably wouldn't start with that one. I'd start with one that would be more meaningful for that dog. So it's sort of, I guess I would think of it more like it's a puzzle, and we'll put the pieces together. And at the end, we'll have a pretty picture all put together, but they might get put together in a different order for different dogs.
Hey, Michael, I got a question for Kim.
Yep.
Okay. So, Kim, when you, on this subject, when you go to help a family and you're, first time there, puppy, and you just kind of get your session started, what's one of, and it's okay if you name more than one, but what's one of the biggest mistakes, most common, that you see the family members make during a first session? I'm curious if they line up with some of the things that I see.
Well, that's an easy question, Travis. When you had a question for me, I was like holding on the edge.
I know.
I knew what question it was going to be.
I was holding my breath.
That way. Yeah. Michael was like, I don't know if we want him asking you a question, but I'm going to let it slide. I like that.
I got it. Yeah. So I think that the biggest mistake that I see most pet parents make is that they accidentally reinforce behavior that they don't actually want their dog to do. So if their dog jumps on me when I come through the front door, then the owners might, don't do that, don't jump on her, push them down, but really it looks a lot like petting, talking to them. I guess the worst case of this happened many years ago, maybe 10 years ago or so. I arrived at the front door and there were two dogs that were supposed to be on leash, and they weren't because the owner forgot. So that's another mistake. But, one of their dogs started to growl at me, and she said, oh, hang on a second, just come into the kitchen with me. I was like, well, why are we walking into the kitchen? Your dog is growling at me. She's like, I just need to get a treat for him real quick. If I give him a treat, he'll stop growling at you. And I was like, I don't really think we should start our training that way, because I don't want to reinforce the growling. But that's the mistake most people make, is that they accidentally reinforce something that they're actually trying to get their dog to not do.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's the same. And I think it's probably the same for a lot of people. And obviously for you to acknowledge that and recognize that, obviously, shows you have a lot of experience. I would say, to add to that, the second thing that I see a lot is the owners wanting to do more than the dog can comprehend, either in a training session or just too quickly, right? So back to realistic expectations, and you mentioned this a while ago, Kim, was really keeping the sessions not just short, but really one subject at a time, right? And so I have to explain to my clients, hey, like when you're in school, your first period isn't math, history, and science all in the same hour, right? You do 1 hour, then you take a little break, and then you do another hour. It's a different subject, and really getting them to understand you really want to break these up individually, take breaks, and just to take your time, and I think it's just a lot of owners get in a hurry. They want quick results. They want fast results, and helping them understand that, slower is better. So if it's not simple, you're probably doing something wrong. So anyway, sorry to get off rail there, Michael, back to you.
No. I enjoyed this because it just took me to the next questions. I do want to jump back really quick because both of you, it's so beautiful to hear the way you describe on how you train your dogs and different dogs. I'm like, I'm sitting here going, where were they when I was in school? Where they weren't my teachers, because like in school, I was the kid that was like bouncing off the walls, ADD. My mom was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And my teachers were the same way. And they just didn't know how to handle me half the time because I was this crazy artist kid. And I just didn't know, I didn't have my path where I was going, but it was really hard to find a teacher that really understood me. And it wasn't until we found an art teacher that gave me some art, and all of a sudden my world changed. And they're like, oh my God, we found his magic tool. And I'm assuming that's the same thing with you, Kim and Travis, is that when you're working with a puppy, you will see this behavior and you'll be able to adjust your strategic training plan, let's say, as you say, Kim, into the proper form for that puppy.
Yes, absolutely. And I think more poignant and not yet mentioned is that I also have to change my teaching style or my normal mode of delivery to accommodate to the owner, so that I'm teaching the owner in the way that the owner will learn the best. And so it's a combination, which I think is super fun. And one of the things I like best about this industry is like, it's not just the dog that we're dealing with, it's the owners. And if you can't accommodate that and change your style to make sure that the owners are going to hear you, and then you're wasting your time. Like, you can train the dog all you want, but if the owner isn't going to understand at the end of the day, it's not going to be effective.
Well, that takes, sorry, Travis, you have something you want to add?
Oh, I was just going to say some of the most successful dog trainers that I have met in all the years I've been doing this are, believe it or not, they're a people person first and a dog person second, for that very reason, right? Because you could say something to one owner one way, where you could say that same thing to another owner and offend them, right? Or you could say something to one child one way and it goes right over their head, where you could say something to another child and it makes sense to them. So one of the tips that I give our trainers is get to know the dog owners, especially if they're adults, learn a little bit about, what they do for work, right? And so maybe they're an attorney or maybe they're a doctor. And if you know about that, then the analogies that you use during your training session, they can relate to them if you can use an analogy based on their line of work. Or easy one, finding out if any of them have ever played sports, or, were big into different types of clubs, a band, or if they play musical instruments, learning what's important to them, what they're passionate about in their daily life, and helping them understand the process and the progress through things that they are very, very familiar with will help them learn so much quicker. And then when they have questions, their questions are very poignant. They're very specific because you've based it on experiences that they have had outside their relationship with dogs, which a lot of them either new pet owners or they had a 16-year-old dog that passed away, and gosh, they just don't remember the puppy stage. So I think that that's another great approach for trainers, is learn as much about your owners as you can, what's important to them, what they like to do, and then use those analogies to help them understand how to navigate their new relationship with their dog.
Well, I love that, Travis. That's so spot on. It's the same thing I do with my design work when I'm working with a wedding. Let's say I've got a bride, I've got a groom, I've got the two mother-in-laws, which are always in the way, which I always have to sit in different corners of the room. But getting to know them is so important. And I think Kim's like, that's one of the things she always talks about, is like getting to know the owner and what they want out of the dog. And I think, being able to identify the training task in their language, let's say, makes a world of difference. And I love that you brought that up. I want to get back to a couple things before we move forward here. You said, Travis, promoting calm behavior. Kim, you're like comfortable, get them to do nothing at first. And I go back to my own experience in school. It's like, after that art teacher came to my mom and started doing art with me, my whole schooling, my education level, everything changed for me because I was in the right groove. I was doing the right thing. I got the right trainer, let's say. And one of the things that they recommended to my mom was like, before you bring them to school, take them for a walk around the block. And it was amazing, that little walk around the block promoting the calm behavior, getting them comfortable before school was such a game changer for me, because it allowed me, with my mind being so creative and so detailed and ADD all over the place, it allowed me to walk around the block and see the leaves basically like a dog, smell the trunks, and just walk around the neighborhood and take in all of life outside. So by the time I got to school, I was already stimulated from all that allowed me to calm down and be focused on my training. And I think that this is like exactly what you guys are talking about with the dogs. And I just love hearing this, because I think, to stick a dog into an academy and say, okay, see ya, bye, you're going to learn sit, stay, jump, and all this by themselves, and not have the parent involved I don't think it really is successful that way. Any thoughts?
Michael, I think that's awesome that you do that. And I think that just, shows your experience level, because most people obviously don't do that right out of the gate, but you learned over the years that if you don't find something in common with them, it's going to be hard for them to accept what you're saying. Well, while Kim was talking a while ago, my wife actually, I love kid analogies. I'm not going to get away from
Mr. Blue
without using one. Right. Yeah, Mr. Blue. So he starts pre-kindergarten next year, which is 5 days a week, never been to this school. And 10 minutes ago, my wife just sent me a picture. It's summertime. She took him to the school. They're playing on the playground. There's nobody there, right? There's no school in session. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, that's so sweet. Oh, he gets to play on his playground. But to exactly what you said, yep. How much more comfortable is he going to be next year when he shows up on the first day, right? If we've taken him there a handful of times to get familiar with the grounds, to play on the playground, not a lot of distractions. So I just think there's a lot of similarities there. I think that's a great point you brought up, Michael.
No, and I love that, Travis, that you brought that up, because think for Blue. I mean, if you take him there 10 times before school starts, he's going to know the lay of the land, and he's going to be like, it's going to be his land compared to the other kids' land, at first. So I love that. Yeah, definitely. It really makes a difference. We talked about we talk about this all the time, reinforcing bad behavior, and what a hump that seems to be for a lot of parents to understand. And then the other thing that you mentioned is expectations. And we've been talking a lot this last week about high expectations, where the parent does have high expectations for the dog to succeed. And that seems to be a failure a lot of times, in the fact that the human has such high expectations for their dogs to succeed, just and sit, stay down, or whatever it might be. And when the dog doesn't do it, they get frustrated. And then that frustration gets fed into the dog, and there's that anxiety. Really, Kim, I would love for you to explain, like, when you work with your clients and you see that they have high expectations, or do you try to explain this or express this in the beginning of your training with them so that that doesn't become an issue? What's your thought on that, Kim?
Well, I think that I tend to see both extremes. I definitely see clients who are exactly like you're describing, like they think their 2-month or their 3-month-old puppy should be perfect, and then they're frustrated if it's not. But I also see people who have a 9-month-old puppy who are still like, oh, my dog just bit you, I'm sorry, it's just a puppy, or it's barking all the time because it's just a puppy. And so I tend to think that people use that also as an excuse for their dog's inappropriate behavior. And so I don't tend to really have a whole conversation about that. I approach it from a different direction, but it's really just a matter of, talking to them again, what do they want? What would they like their dog to do in this situation? And then discussing what exactly would be the training plan to get them there. And Michael, you're the one that created this room and this series called Step by Step, but that's really what I talk about. So, technically in training, it's called successive approximation, but I never call it that when I'm talking to the client. Step by step is a great way to phrase it, but baby steps really. And so I just try to teach them that they need to take small steps in the direction that they want to go. And if their dog is getting something wrong, that really that's just information to them that they probably took too big of a step getting in the direction that they want to go. And that especially if their dog got it wrong more than once, so if your dog gets something wrong twice in a row, then our protocol is then you have to make it easier. And so I look at it more like it's a dance, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and that the goal is that you're continuing to progress in the direction that you want, which is really why it's so important that you have a vision about where it is you're going, so that you don't end up veering off course too far, but that it shouldn't be in anybody's mind like a really clear trajectory, like a straight line trajectory to get there. It's much messier than that, but the important part is that you keep making progress, and then not making things too hard.
You know, and I love that you say this because we talk about this all the time, baby steps, how important baby steps are. And Kim, you guys are killing me today with these analogies that you're hitting me in these like little nerves of mine. It's like growing up here in LA, I was in television and, took, acting classes, was in commercials and all that. And one of the things I thought, I need to become a dancer. And so I took Debbie Allen's dance class, and being dyslexic, every time they'd go right, I'd go left. And so I was always running into people on the dance floor. And finally, the dance instructor looked at me and goes, Michael, we need to have a talk. And I'm like, what? And they're like, we need to have a talk. I don't know if dancing's right for you. And I was like, oh my God, no, but I need it. I need it for my resume. And so they said, well, why don't you stay after and I'll give you some private lessons and let's see how that is. And that's exactly what he did with me, Kim. It was like the teacher, baby steps. We did 2 steps left, 1 step right, 2 steps left, 1 step right. And by the next class, I was at least not running into people and I was able to catch myself if I was going in the wrong direction. But it gets back to that baby step. So everybody in the room, we talk about this all the time. If you're a pet owner and you're working with your dog and you're training your dog and you're not sure why it's not working, maybe it's high expectations, maybe it's low expectations. Maybe it's you're moving too fast. So really go in baby steps and go super, super slow, because by doing that, you're just setting your dog up to win. Because if you can conquer the cues and the markers up front and the training up front from day one in the first 3 months of their life, you're going to be golden for the rest of your life. But if you go through this period of, high expectations, under expectations, giving all your dog excuses and not really being connected to your dog, you're going to miss this opportunity and you're going to be struggling perhaps in the future and bringing them back going, what's wrong? And really, we talk about this, look in the mirror, get to know your dog, who they are, and get to know yourself, who you are, and how you guys work together as a team. Because being connected, what I'm learning from Kim, Travis, and all the other trainers in the rooms, is the number one key of a successful training and relationship with your dog. And have a relationship with your dog. Don't let them just be your roommate, but have a relationship with them. So I want to jump to reinforcing bad behavior, because we talk about this so much, and I don't think we could talk about it enough, because it seems to be the number one issue why dogs have why there's complications in training, is because people just don't know. And we talk about this all the time. We don't know what we don't know. So I see a lot of pet owners don't realize they're enforcing the bad behaviors, because from learning from you, Kim, and learning from Travis, how many times have I done that with my dog without even realizing it? Because I think we're always trying to give them the warm, fuzzy, oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. But in reality, we're just kicking ourselves in the butt because we're not doing the right thing, or we don't know we're not doing the right thing. So, Kim, how do you explain this to a client to not reinforce the bad?
The bad behavior from their dog. Sure. Yeah. I tell a client that if their dog is doing something that they don't want, that it is really important that they not give their dog attention. So specifically, don't look at your dog, don't talk to your dog, or don't touch your dog if it's possible when they're doing something wrong. But that in and of itself won't really get you very far. It is in incredibly clear contrast to.
We lost you, Kim.
In a way that you like. Yeah.
We lost you for a second there.
Oh.
You went black.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. No.
I went black.
You
Sounds like I got a phone call, but I didn't.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like waiting for the phone call. You were at, it's in contrast. Oh, did we lose you? maybe. Um, yeah, because we talk about this all the time about reinforcing bad behavior, and we don't know that we're doing this. I mean, we all do this with our dogs.
Because they're,
Travis,
yeah, because, yep,
go ahead.
yep, you got me?
Yep.
Okay. Is that I really want the owner to understand, number one, I understand what they're doing, right? Which is the dog's doing something they don't want. They want the dog to stop. So they typically, their default is to unintentionally reward the behavior. So if the dog is growling or staring at somebody and showing their teeth and they go down and hover over the dog and pet the dog and say, it's okay, calm down, it's going to be okay. And I'll, in that moment, I'll say, okay, so I see what you're doing. Explain to me what your goal is by doing that, right? And let them come to the conclusion of, well, I need them to know they don't need to be scared. I'm like, okay, great. Because that is what you do with a child. And this is where some of the things are different, right? You could explain to a child, hey, it's okay, it's safe, they're not going to hurt you, they're friendly. But with a dog, it's so much more simple, right? If they're doing a behavior and you reinforce that in any way, in their mind, you're telling them, great job. That's exactly how you should respond in these situations. And usually by, letting them know, hey, I get it. I see what you're doing. I understand what you're doing. Believe me, before I was a trainer, I did the same thing. And once you can kind of side with them and let them know, hey, I'm with you. I'm not against you. First of all, as a trainer, I'm not perfect either. I'd make those same mistakes. Hopefully over the years, less and less, but nobody's perfect. And so I think that's a great way to help them understand is to really ask them, hey, what's your intention when you do that? And let them go, well, I'm trying to do this. Totally understand. But to the dog, this is what that means. And I think that really hits home with them a lot without making them feel guilty or bad, that they're just doing all these things wrong. I think that's a tough way to get an owner on your side if you're making them feel guilty for doing stuff.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing to always remember, that when we're in Clubhouse, we're not here to shame anybody. We're not here to make anybody feel bad. We're just here to bring awareness and ideas and possibilities that you can have a better relationship with your dogs just by learning things that you don't know. And that's why we host these rooms and have these conversations. Kim, are you back?
I hope so.
You are. Yay.
Excellent.
So we were talking about, reinforcing the bad behaviors and how you work with your clients not to maybe the first thing to do with a client is to allow them to be able to identify that they're reinforcing the bad behavior, because I think that's the big struggle right there is, a lot of times they don't know what they're doing or that they're reinforcing this bad behavior. How do you help them identify that they're doing this?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. Most of the time we just start talking about it, and Travis can probably attest to this too, is you can just tell by the look on their face where they're going through and thinking about all of the times that they accidentally do that. And so I agree with Travis. Certainly we'd never want anybody to feel like they're doing something wrong or that we're judging them. I always kind of think it's a little funny. Like people laugh usually. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing all of those things wrong. And so it's just sort of bringing it into their awareness. But I also think it's important to recognize too that it's really whether or not you're are you looking at it as a short-term goal or a long-term goal? And my job is long-term, like to have the dogs be really well behaved a month from now or 2 months from now or for the whole rest of their life. Whereas some other people may give you advice that would be to accidentally reinforce your dog for doing something wrong. But if it's a short-term goal, so for instance, if your puppy is biting your arm and you give your puppy a toy to distract your puppy, it will stop biting your arm. And right in that moment, you maybe will stop bleeding, and that would be great, and you'll be really happy that your dog's not biting you. But that's the kind of pattern that could, over time, actually create more puppy biting, because if they're going to bite you and then they get their favorite toy hand delivered to them and they like that, then the puppy sometimes will learn, like, oh, I'll just bite your arm and you'll give me, the toy that's up on the counter, and then I'll get to go play with it. But it's all about long-term goals or short-term goals. Mine are long-term. I want a dog who would use their teeth less on your body. So I don't really like to personally, I don't do that. I don't exchange it for something right then and there, we go a different direction. So it's all short term, long term, what you're reinforcing, and not accidentally giving the dog something that they want in response to inappropriate behavior, no matter how we want to communicate that to the owners. And for every owner, sometimes that's different how they process the information, but most people pick up on it pretty quickly.
Travis.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add to that real quick. That's all great stuff. Because one of the things, and I'm sure Kim gets this a lot, and other trainers that are in the room, you'll go in and they'll have this list, right? They have a list of things which is great. I love lists. I love it when people have lists because that lets you know that that's the most important thing to them. But a lot of times the things on the list are, what do I do when my dog is doing this, right? So in their mind, my dog is biting my skin. What do I do, right? My dog is jumping on me. What do I do? Well, the problem is any type of intervention isn't really teaching your dog not to do it, right? So I'll just propose the question, what are you doing the moment before your dog starts to bite you? What are you doing the moment before your dog jumps? So with Kim's great analogy with the toy, is we make a rule in the home, if the puppy's out and somebody's going to play with them, really with children, but it works with adults too, is that you can't engage the dog unless you have a toy in your hand first, right? If you're coming home and you're anticipating your dog's going to jump on you, how are you prepared the moment before your dog jumps to help them make a different decision? So almost rewiring the owner's brain and to think more about prevention and less about intervention. Because when you're focused on intervention, you're not really teaching, you're just interrupting and redirecting, which isn't really setting your dog up for a complete success because you're just continually stopping a bad behavior, not helping them make a different choice so that they don't make the bad behavior mistake to begin with.
Prevention. I think that's, a key right there. Kim, I know you've talked about this before. Let's go back to what you were talking about. The dog biting, they give them a toy. And at that moment, they're really reinforcing that bad behavior. And like you said, that could be years of dog biting at that point if they don't understand this. And this is why I really want to bring this to light for our room, for everybody that's in the room right now. This is a fine line that we're talking about, and I've learned this, and I always say, I'm not a dog trainer. I'm just a dog advocate. And I've learned this from Kim. I've learned this from Travis and everybody else that's in the room with us. So there's that fine line. The dog's biting. You give him a toy. You think you're saying he stopped biting. You're like, oh, here's your toy. And it's distracting him for a second. What do you do in that fine moment of time? The dog's biting. What do you do? Do you take a pause? How do you distract them? Do you distract them and then reinforce the good when they get to the good?
That's a great question. It varies a little bit based on the dog and the intensity and the habit and the pattern and how big of an issue or problem it is systemically in the whole relationship and lifestyle of the puppy. So it's tough to tell you, like, I don't have like a one quick answer for it, like, oh, this is what you do. It's not like, again, it's not cookie cutter. However, what I would want personally would be, a minimum of a neutral response. So not squealing or jumping or making any sudden movements, right? At least neutral. Sometimes I would use like a sound. For me, I tend to do like an kind of an type of a sound. More to surprise maybe, or startle, or not startle, but like be the opposite of a squealy, excited noise anyway, with the goal. But what's important for me most of the time is that if possible, I like to stay still and then calmly move the dog away from me. And again, it's trying to mitigate our natural reflexes of like flailing backwards and jumping up and, climbing up on top of the dining room table, which I've seen before in private lessons, where then the dog thinks like, well, that was fun. And then they might want to do that again. And so all of that aside, the important part for me is that, yes, I like there to be some sort of a pause. Best case scenario, that pause might be 20 or 30 seconds. But if if it's a difficult case or a difficult dog or a tough puppy, the pause could be shorter than 20 seconds, but that I would want to try to move forward in a normal way, reinforcing the dog or engaging with the dog, talking to them, interacting with them normally again after the 20 or 30 seconds of that they haven't done anything wrong. The puppy hasn't done anything wrong for 20 seconds before I would continue to interact with them normally again after that. And all of that aside, everything Travis said, your goal is to try to make sure that that doesn't happen. You as a handler, you as a person interacting with the puppy, what are you doing to create an environment where the probability of that happening is really, really low? And then sometimes it still happens anyway, and you need to be able to ensure that you don't make it worse by the way you handle it.
Well, and I think what you're saying too is like what Travis is saying, prevention is the fact that if you walk inside the house and you sit down on the sofa like you do every single day, and then your dog starts to bite you, you maybe have already reinforced that bad behavior. So he thinks he's going to get his toy because he's starting to bite you on the sofa. So I love the whole idea of prevention is that when you walk in that front door, do something different, go to the kitchen, do some completely different thing that the dog's not expecting, and perhaps taking it off where Kim's talking about, get to that normal space and then continue on with positive training. Travis, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that's all great points. A lot of times we'll talk about that coming home business, right? And they'll say, well, it doesn't matter what I do when I come home, they jump all over me. It doesn't matter if I have treats. And that's when we go, okay, well, let's talk about this situation, right? If you can't manage that situation, and we're talking about setting your dog up to be successful, then where does your dog need to be when you come home if you don't have any control, right? And that's usually when we're talking about if you don't have control there, then your dog needs to be, confined to a small space or in a crate so that when you come home, you're starting off on the right foot every single time. Because when a family is so focused on, well, what do I do when my dog starts to do this, right? And I think everything that Kim said, I totally agree with. The problem we run into is that Kim's direction, as good as it is, it's very hard for every person in that family to remove themselves, quote unquote, to take away the reward the dog is receiving consistently enough and doing it the exact same way that it sends the right signal to the dog, right? Where one owner might pick the dog up and put it in its crate or put it in a small penned area. Well, the dog was biting you and then you picked it up, right? Or if you go, okay, well, you have to ignore the dog when it's biting you. Okay, well, that makes sense in theory, but how does that work without rewarding them, right? And so I think that there's ways to do it that it works. The problem is for it to be consistent to where the dog is understanding and getting it is very, very difficult when you're already in the middle of the problem versus focusing on how do I set the situation up so that we're guiding them and steering them down the right path consistently whenever, they're outside of their crate or confined area.
Well, and that gets into the whole philosophy of like having that whole herd of pack of people and animals together and how they react to each other and how they're going to behave. And yeah, I could just see the dynamic of, it's like what you were talking about earlier, Kim. It's like you have a person with a single family, just a single dog, a single family member, and that's their life. But then you have a family that has several kids, a wife, a husband, or a partner, whatever it might be, and they have a full family. And so each one of them they all have to work as a team, just like we talk about all the time with, if you have a dog and you don't have your team set up with a trainer or walker, a sitter and all that right now during the pandemic, you need to get your team together. And that's a whole different story I could jump on, and I'd like to jump on it, but we're not going to right now. But just with your family has to act as that team too, so that you have, because what's your thought on this? Because I did start off by asking puppy, older, or rescued. We're talking about puppies here. What about if it's an older dog and they've adopted an older dog? And can you really, I'm jumping to this, I'm totally jumping subjects right here, but I just want to get to this and see what your thoughts are, you guys.
Michael, we do it to you all the time. So you get a free pass. Jump around wherever you want.
Perfect. Thank you, Travis. Can you teach an old dog new tricks? What do you think, Kim? Travis?
Yes, of course. And I would again, we always say, like, can your grandma or grandpa still learn something, right? Or are they done learning when they reach 75, right? No, not at all. So yeah, I think that's good for people to know. Yes, you can.
So everything that we're talking about with puppies and their behaviors and their bad behaviors and pausing and giving them a distraction applies to older dogs as well, because maybe they come from a family that's been abusive, or they've been on the road, or they've been homeless themselves, or whatever the case may be. But so we can take our dogs and train them if they're, let's say, teenagers or adults.
Yes, absolutely. The only thing I think to keep in mind is that if you have an older dog that has rehearsed an inappropriate behavior for a very long time, it doesn't mean that you can't get it to change trajectory and make different choices and have different behavior. You can still rehabilitate that dog. Sometimes it's a little bit more challenging. It takes a little bit more patience, and oftentimes will then potentially need the help of a professional to do it, because it's much like us. If we have a habit and we have it for a really, really long time, it's just harder to change that habit. It's harder to change when you've had a lot of reinforcement history. And I think especially if that inappropriate behavior has to do with some level of aggression, that can be learned in dogs as well, that if they growl at someone or snap at someone and then that person moves away from them, as far as the dog is concerned, that was really, really helpful to them. They got what they wanted. And then if somebody swoops in and says, now I want them to not do that anymore, it can be a little bit more complicated to shift and change things like that, but not impossible for sure.
So a little more patience with the older dogs. Beautiful. Okay, so everybody, I want to kind of close the room out a little bit before we go out. I do want to say hello to all the new people that are here on Clubhouse. I've noticed in last couple of weeks, we've got a whole new group of people coming into Clubhouse. Maybe you're on Androids. Welcome. If you're not following me, be sure to hit my profile picture and hit follow. Same with Kim and Travis. We hold these rooms throughout the weeks, a couple times a day, and we talk about all different subjects. As you can see on my profile picture, I've got Michael the Journey on YouTube. What I've been doing, just so everybody in the room understands, is that we've been recording our rooms just like we did today. And we have these incredible conversations, and people have been asking me, they've DM'd me and say, hey, are you recording? I missed the first half or the second half, or I want to listen to that again. And so now you're going to be able to, if you go to Michael the Journey, you can put in pets after the journey and it'll be easy to find. You'll be able to start listening to our recordings of all our rooms. And it's really an educational tool for everybody, from trainers to pet owners to nutritionists. We're just talking about all these different topics. So be sure to, check that out, hit the subscribe button, become part of our family there, because it's all from Clubhouse. It's everybody that's here that's donated to this cause and been really wonderful in the whole process, because it has been a process. Before I do have the hand raising off on the room right now, I do that so that we could stay on topic and stay focused with our conversation. I am going to go ahead and take it off here in a second. Before I do that, I do like to respect Kim and Travis's time at the top of the hour. If they need to jump, they jump. But I do want to give Travis has got these incredible treats that he works with this incredible group of people. And I would love for him to give us a little touch point on that. Travis?
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, so when I was hosting my Big Fat Pet Makeover on Animal Planet, was really addressing the obesity problem across the country with, over almost 60% of household pets being overweight. A lot of it has to do with overfeeding, but some of it's just unhealthy food, unhealthy treats. And so when I opened the facility in Oklahoma, I teamed up with a group here that provides jobs for adults with disabilities. They have a USDA certified organic kitchen. They make these amazing organic biscuits. We have single ingredient beef jerky treats. They label all the bags, they bag them, they ship them. They put a fun little thank you card that they made by hand in the package, and just supports a really great cause, but also a very, very healthy treat for training and for your dog. So a really, really fun project that we have going here, and would love for anybody to check that out. You can find more information about it in my profile. And I know Kim started off the the hour talking about her stuff, but I'd love for her to get that plug in. I know you will have her, Michael, but something you haven't done, Michael, that I'd love to hear you say. This week I was on your profile and I was almost freaked out by the amount of rooms that you have going, which means you're doing something right. So Michael, make sure you get a chance to tell people where they can find out about your other rooms and the amazing experts that you have on stage with you. I'd love for people to continue to follow your rooms.
Well, thank you, Travis. Let's jump to Kim real quick. Kim, I think what you're doing, and you started way before the pandemic, which, is just a testimony of like who you are, looking at the future and just really being able to work with your clients and give your clients all that you can and all the possibilities, because especially I'm finding that with the pandemic and people are starting to open up around the world. We are definitely open up here in the United States. And a lot of people are now reaching out to their trainers, to their dog walkers, and they're finding that they're booked or they're busy. And one of the things I think is so brilliant is during that time that you're waiting maybe to get in a person-to-person training course or whatever, you have these other wonderful options. And Kim has one. Kim, would you like to describe it?
Sure thing. It's an online dog training program called Manners Matter. It's designed to take you 4 weeks to go through the different modules and the different exercises with downloads and homework, and some videos that describe exactly what we're talking about. And it has been around now, I want to say, for 8 years, as far as availability for people to purchase and do the online program. And people have done it all around the world, which is super fun for me when I have people reaching out from Europe or other areas to just to sort of share their story about how things are going inside the program. So that is something that we have had for a while, but it is super helpful for people who like the opportunity to try to train their dog from home, but want just a little bit of support in order to do it.
Yeah, and I think this is once again so important during this pandemic. Life after lockdown is getting back into life, is having these opportunities to be able to get onto a course, even if you can't get into a room just yet. But when you can get in a room, that's another wonderful thing that I see here listening to Kim and Travis is that, you've been locked up 24/7 this last year potentially, and so is your dog. And so to be able to get out with a bunch of people in a big arena and start training your dog, it's not just going to be creating a special bond for your dog and letting them get acclimated to other dogs, but it's also allowing you that freedom to get back into life as well, because we all have anxiety in some form at some time. And so this is just a wonderful way to break through that. In regards to my rooms, I do probably 2 to 3 rooms a day here in Clubhouse. I started back in February. And when I came into Clubhouse, I thought I'd be in the world of design and talk about design. And then I saw the dog world, and I've always been so keen on dogs and the wellness of dogs and their health. And so I started seeing that there was Kim, Travis, Jen, Melinda, all these different wonderful people here in Clubhouse. And I wanted to create a space where I could bring people together. Your trainers in one world, you have your dog walkers in another world, you have all these people. But I wanted to create a space where I could bring people together and we could have full educations across the board of what's going on inside the dog world. And what's so special here in Clubhouse is you get to listen straight from, I always say, the dog's mouth, the horse's mouth. You get to hear it right from the trainers. You get to hear it from the dog walkers. You get to hear it from the nutritionists, and you get to hear real live conversations. And that's why I'm so excited that we're posting them on the journey, is the fact that these will live there forever. But by being here in Clubhouse, you get to hear it live. And you get to hear the latest, because like in the last 10 years, training and diet and everything with your dog has completely changed. And for you to be at the forefront so that you can set your dog up to win is my mission here in Clubhouse, is being able to bring wonderful people like Kim and Travis together. So if you hit my profile picture, once again, you'll see a list of the rooms that I host throughout the week. And then eventually you see something that you like, and maybe it's off your time limit or something like that, you'll be able to go to Michael the Journey and just listen to it anytime there. It is a slow process, us getting up all the recordings that we have, but we are doing it. It's a day-by-day process. I'm trying to get 2 to 3 a day, and that's really tough because there's a lot of editing that has to go on. But it's for you guys. So I'm really excited that we're at this point. It's taken us several months to get here. The other thing I want to close out the room before we take maybe a couple questions before Kim and Travis, if they don't have to jump, is we're getting to 4th of July, and in Los Angeles, we're starting to hear a lot of fireworks. And we have a product called Healthy Paws Herbal Labs, and it's called No More Drama. And it's a natural, holistic way of calming your dog. And it's our #1 seller right now because of 4th of July. So if you have a dog and they have anxiety around the fireworks, the noises, the loud bangs, we see it here in LA. It's already started. It's probably going to go past the 4th of July. Feel free to hit our website up. I do give away a free travel site of No More Drama. All you do is when you check out, you put in the word club and you can get a free travel size. If anything, grab the travel size so at least you have it for your dog or your cat during this time, because they do get really nervous and afraid of these noises. And this is just a natural way to calm them down. So with that, once again, you can find the link. You can go through my Instagram and find the link to our website. Just put the word club in at checkout for the travel site of the No More Drama. And let's get that shipped out to you so you guys at least have it, have it in your medicine cabinet as an arsenal piece that you can bring it out in case you need it. So with that, I did raise the hand. I know Kim and Travis may have something they need to jump to real quick. Do you guys have a second if anybody has a question?
Yep, I sure do.
Travis?
I'll stay as long as I can.
Okay,
If there's
perfect.
a really hard question and I duck out, you'll know that I just couldn't answer the question and I gave it to Kim.
I know. Well, I had another question for you, but I don't have time for it. And it was a hard one. Anyone in the room, if you have any questions, please raise your hand now. If not, we'll go ahead and close the room. Thank you guys, everybody, for joining us as always. Thank you for sitting and listening. This is really my goal here, is really creating kind of a podcast platform here in Clubhouse now. I've learned so much from Clubhouse. You guys have taught me so much from your DMs. I appreciate all your DMs that you send me, suggestions. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close the room. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Step by step, beginning training cues and markers with Kim Greco and Travis Borson. We enjoy that you come to our room every week and listen to our next topic. And it's just always a pleasure for us to be here. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day, evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I'm Michael. I'm out. There you have it. Another wonderful room with Kim and Travis in regards to cues and markers. Stay tuned for our next show. Be sure to tune in, subscribe, hit the like button. We'll see you soon.